60% of divorced men will never remarry. Ever. That number should shock you. While divorced women jump back into marriage at twice the rate, millions of men are saying, never again. Think about the divorced men you know, your coworker, your brother, that guy at the gym. Chances are they're part of this 60%, and they all have one thing in common. Meet James. He's 42, financially stable, emotionally calm, good-looking, women are interested, and he'll never marry again. Not bitter, not broken, just rewired. You might think this is about commitment issues or hating women. You'd be wrong. You might think he's damaged goods or has trust issues. Wrong again. This is about your brain. Divorce doesn't just end a relationship. It rewires how you think about risk, trust, and protecting yourself. It changes how you see the future. It changes how you calculate what's worth risking. Most people don't understand what really happens inside a man's head after divorce. They see the surface. They see him dating but not committing. They assume he's afraid or broken. They're missing the real story. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 brain changes that explain why James, and maybe you, will never walk down the aisle again. These aren't emotional reactions. These are neurological adaptations. Your brain learning from trauma and adjusting its risk assessment accordingly. By the end, you'll understand what's really happening inside your head after divorce, and why it might be the smartest thing that ever happened to you. Section 1. Your brain's new risk calculator. Here's what scientists discovered about loss versus gain in your brain. James lost half his money. He lost daily time with his kids. He lost his identity as a married man. He lost the house he'd been paying for. Now his brain measures remarriage against all that pain. You feel losses twice as hard as gains. Think about it. Winning $100 feels good for a few hours. Losing $100 feels terrible for days. The loss cuts deeper. It haunts you longer. This isn't just psychology. This is hardwired into your neural pathways. For divorced men, marriage isn't about gaining a partner anymore. It's about risking another massive loss. Here's how your brain does the math after divorce. On one side, companionship, support, shared life, emotional intimacy. On the other side, proven money loss, custody fights, identity collapse, losing control of your future, legal fees, and starting over financially at 40 plus. The math doesn't work anymore. Millions of men report this exact feeling. You already lost big once. Your brain asks, why risk losing big again? The data backs this up. Divorced men are 60% less likely to remarry than divorced women. When they do remarry, they wait way longer, often 5 to 7 years compared to women's 3 to 4 years. Many say staying single isn't giving up on love. It's refusing to bet everything when the game feels rigged. James doesn't hate women. He doesn't hate closeness. His brain just won't accept a legal contract where losing hurts twice as much as winning feels good. Before divorce, James saw marriage as solid ground. After divorce, he sees it as a high-risk bet with massive downside and unclear upside. The shift isn't emotional, it's pure math. When you lose half your money, daily time with your kids, and the identity you built for decades, your brain learns. Marriage isn't safe. Your effort can all disappear because of one decision you can't control. What does your brain do with that lesson? It files it under never again. But here's what gets darker. Your brain doesn't just change how it calculates risk, it learns something more devastating. Section 2. When your effort stops mattering. Have you ever felt like nothing you do changes the outcome? That's learned helplessness, and it's destroying men after divorce. James spent years trying to save his marriage, therapy sessions every Thursday, endless compromises about money, kids, career decisions. He read the books, The 5 Love Languages, Getting the Love You Want. He changed how he talked. He tried to meet her needs. He gave up golf with his friends. He stopped watching sports. He became a different person trying to save his marriage, and it still ended in divorce court. Here's what scientists discovered in the lab. When you can't control what happens, you eventually stop trying to control anything. In experiments, dogs got shocked no matter what they did. Eventually, they stopped trying to escape. Even when escape became possible, they just lay there and took the pain. They learned their actions didn't matter. Sound familiar? Divorced men describe a similar moment, the exact moment they realized their effort didn't change anything. She'd already decided. The system was already tilted. The ending was locked in. James remembers his exact moment. He sat in the therapist's office. He offered another compromise, another attempt to fix things. He suggested they could move closer to her mother. He suggested couples retreats, date nights, anything, and he saw it in her eyes. She wasn't there to fix the marriage. She was there to check a box so she could tell the judge she tried therapy. The decision was already made. Everything after that was just paperwork. Why does this pattern keep destroying marriages? Women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces. Men report feeling blindsided. They realize their effort had no effect on the final decision. The marriage was over before they even knew it was in trouble. This creates a dangerous pattern in your brain. If your effort doesn't change the outcome, why make the effort next time? James now applies this lesson everywhere. Why enter a system where your commitment is required, but your say is optional? Where you can do everything right and still lose everything? You're not alone in thinking this. Millions of men have learned the same lesson. Your brain learns patterns to protect you. When effort repeatedly fails to stop bad outcomes, your brain stops investing effort in that area. It's not depression, it's survival programming. But something even more fundamental breaks down: your entire sense of who you are. Section 3. Becoming someone new. Can you rebuild yourself stronger than before? James discovered the answer, and it might surprise you. Divorce doesn't just end a relationship. It forces you to rebuild who you are from the ground up. James was a husband for 12 years, a provider, a family man, the guy who fixed things around the house, coached Little League, planned family vacations. Those weren't just roles he played on weekends. They were the foundation of his entire self-concept. They gave him purpose. They gave him respect from his community. They answered the fundamental question every man asks himself: who am I? After divorce, he had to answer that question again. From zero, with no roadmap. Who are you when those roles disappear overnight? Who are you when you wake up in a one-bedroom apartment instead of the family home you spent 15 years improving? Who are you when your kids aren't there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Major life changes, divorce, job loss, death of a parent, serious illness trigger what psychologists call identity crises. They force you to completely rethink your values, your purpose, and who you are at your core. You can't just remove a central identity and expect everything else to hold together. James spent months in complete disorientation. He'd wake up at 6 a.m., his old routine for getting the kids ready for school, and remember, they weren't there. The apartment felt wrong. The silence felt wrong. No routine, no shared meals, no one asking him how his day went. No one needing him to fix the washing machine or help with homework. It felt like living in someone else's life. But here's what most people don't understand about rock bottom. It's also solid ground. When you lose everything that defined you, you finally get to discover who you actually are underneath all those expectations and roles. Being lost eventually leads to intentional rebuilding. Here's what successful divorced men do differently than the ones who stay stuck. They don't just drift. They actively rebuild their identity outside traditional roles. They ask tough questions. What do I actually value when no one is watching? What gives me genuine purpose when I'm not performing for anyone else? What kind of man do I want to be when it's just me? James rebuilt around 3 core pillars: complete freedom, financial security, and emotional self-control. Freedom meant making every decision without needing anyone's approval, choosing where to live based on what he wanted, close to work, close to hiking trails, in the kind of neighborhood he preferred, choosing how to spend his time, what risks to take with his career, what hobbies to pursue. No committees, no negotiations, no compromise. Financial security meant not just rebuilding what he lost, but protecting it better than he ever had before. No joint accounts that someone else could drain, no shared credit cards, no co-signing loans, no financial exposure to someone else's spending habits or poor decisions, building wealth that was completely under his control. Emotional self-control meant learning to manage his own mental state without depending on external validation. Therapy to process the trauma, meditation to build mental discipline, exercise to build physical confidence, reading to expand his perspective, building internal stability instead of seeking it from a romantic partner. Marriage now feels like a direct threat to all 3 pillars. Studies prove divorced men report higher life satisfaction when single compared to their remarried peers. especially when they've successfully built new identities independent of partnership. The men who remarry quickly often describe feeling like they're performing familiar roles again, playing a part, meeting expectations that don't align with who they discovered they really are. The new identity isn't damaged goods. It's not a consolation prize. It's a man who learned he doesn't need external approval to have worth. He doesn't need a relationship to define his value. He doesn't need marriage to prove he's successful. James doesn't introduce himself as a divorced man. He introduces himself as someone who knows exactly what he wants and exactly what he's not willing to risk to get it. That's not bitterness. That's hard-won clarity. The identity he built after divorce is more authentic than the one he performed during marriage. It's built on self-knowledge earned through pain, not on social expectations or what he thought he was supposed to want. Remarriage would require dismantling that authentic identity and rebuilding it around someone else's needs and expectations. Again. And James has zero interest in starting over. But identity is just what happens inside your head. Outside, something even more dramatic shifts in how you approach every relationship. Section 4. The protection system. What if I told you James still dates, still connects, but will never be vulnerable again? Here's why. Your attachment style explains how you bond, trust, and connect. Past trauma shapes it. James was probably securely attached before marriage, comfortable with closeness, comfortable being vulnerable. He trusted that emotional investment would be returned. Divorce often shifts men toward avoidant attachment. Research proves divorced people score higher on avoidant attachment. They show emotional distance and discomfort with depending on others. They keep closeness controlled. This isn't coldness, it's protection. If closeness led to destruction once, your brain learns to control closeness, measure it, limit it. You don't give someone the power to destroy you twice. James still dates, he still connects, but he keeps boundaries that would have felt impossible before divorce. No living together, no shared money, no talks about future commitment. The moment a relationship demands more access, more vulnerability, more risk, he pulls back. But there's one final shift that seals the deal, and it's the most devastating of all. Section 5. Money and parental risk. Here's what no one talks about. The two risks that make remarriage feel impossible. Money risk. James now sees marriage as money risk, not partnership. The data backs this up. Men lose 10 to 40% of their money in divorce, plus ongoing payments to their ex, plus child support that continues no matter what. Why would you sign up for that again? But parental risk cuts even deeper. Divorced fathers feel like visitors in their kids' lives, subject to the mother's rules, subject to court schedules, subject to rules they didn't make and can't fight. Studies show less contact with kids links to higher depression and withdrawal. The less time fathers spend with their kids, the more they pull away emotionally. Not because they don't care, because the pain becomes unbearable. James sees his kids every other weekend. He's not their main parent anymore. He's not part of their daily life. He doesn't make decisions about their school, their health, their rules. He's a secondary person in their lives, and that won't change. Remarriage means risking another round of money loss and possibly losing more kids. If the second marriage fails, he could pay child support to 2 homes. He could lose access to another set of kids. He could go through the same custody fight, the same legal bills, the same powerlessness. Your brain's conclusion is simple. The math of remarriage doesn't work anymore. James isn't avoiding love. He's avoiding a legal system that offers him no protection and maximum danger. So what do you do with all this information? Conclusion. So where does this leave you? Warning signs exist before marriage that most men ignore. Unequal legal protections, mismatched expectations about roles and money, lack of conflict resolution skills before resentment builds. These aren't romantic issues that love will solve. They're structural weaknesses you can identify before you sign the contract. What can you do to heal and rebuild after divorce? Get serious about trauma-focused therapy that addresses attachment wounds. Rebuild your financial foundation stronger than before. Find purpose outside romantic partnership. Learn the difference between being alone and being lonely. James isn't broken. He's adapted. His brain learned the lesson divorce taught and integrated it into a new way of living that prioritizes his well-being. That lesson is permanent, and maybe it should be. The 5 shifts we covered, Your brain's risk calculator, learned helplessness, identity reconstruction, the protection system, and money and parental risk all point to one reality that society doesn't want to acknowledge. Divorce doesn't just end a marriage. It fundamentally rewires how you see relationships, risk, and your own worth. You're not alone in this experience. Millions of men are making the same choice James made. They're choosing autonomy over partnership, security over romance, reality over fantasy. Many report being happier and more authentic than they ever were when trying to live up to someone else's expectations. If you're seeing these shifts in yourself or someone you know, subscribe for more content on rebuilding after relationship trauma and thriving as a single man. Because understanding what's happening in your brain is the foundation for building a life that's truly yours.